Good morning. This is the JP Dinnell podcast, episode 106. I am JP Dinnell, and as always, I have Lucas with me. So today, Lucas and I have the honor of talking with a guest who has had an incredible story of redemption, grace, forgiveness, and taking ownership over his life that has transformed not only his life, but also other men's lives through his story, but also his ability and desire to help other men make the changes that are needed. Anthony, there are a lot of things that Lucas and I are looking forward to discussing with you, but before we dive into those, one, good morning. How are you doing?
Good, brother. I'm blessed, man.
Awesome.
Grateful.
Yeah, man. So there's a lot of things we can talk about with your story, and I know we'll get into a lot of different avenues, but um, let's kind of start from your childhood. Where are you originally from? And then let's just kind of walk through what your childhood was like and bring us to, you know, early adulthood life, some things that were going on, and then, just any shifts from there.
Okay. Sounds great. I'm from the Pacific Palisades, actually.
Nice.
Everybody's kind of familiar with the Palisades now after the fires,
Yeah,
quote.
yeah.
Um, so typical upper middle class upbringing. Did all the family trips. We were going, snow skiing, water skiing, played a lot of sports. However, at 7, Christmas Eve, parents came into the room. They were like, "Hey, we're getting a divorce." Never saw my parents fight or anything. Never saw one argument. Next morning, mom's downstairs by the Christmas tree. Pops is MIA, and I'm sitting there supporting her. My brother comes up. I had a younger brother, a few years younger, came up, wrapped around my leg, and I was like, "Wow, I guess I'm the man of the house at an early age." So father was pretty present though. He wasn't just gone and never saw him again. He would still come take us to the park to play sports. I was involved in the Boy Scouts, so he would be involved with that as well. So he was present, but not in the home, um, which I realized today was such a contributing factor to my early years. I started getting kicked out of all the private schools that I was attending at that point in time. By 10 years old, I started attending public schools and started getting into trouble, started smoking weed, drinking alcohol, had been smoking cigarettes for probably a couple of years. So at 10 is when I really started to reach out and want to hang out with the cool kids, or which I thought was cool, and never really felt like I was a part of the crew. I always felt like an outsider. And some of these kids were actually in the Boy Scouts with us. So it wasn't actually like a regular people think like the Boy Scouts. We were off smoking weed. A few years later, we're taking mushrooms when we're going on trips and stuff. It was just a little different. We were all put in like a troop, a troop, a crew within there that was like all the bad kids. That was like our group that we had. Played sports though. I was still just kind of like a functioning addict from an early age. Into Got into trouble, got caught with weed, a sack of weed in the 6th grade. Um, Actually did graduate the same middle school. I got kicked out of the public schools, private schools and public schools. Made it through the middle school, then went to high school. Again, was playing a lot of sports, was still in the Boy Scouts. Actually did graduate and got my Eagle Scout. Uh, should have gone into the service. However, my addiction was taking place, and I wanted to be part of this, what I thought was like the cool crowd. Played sports through high school, did pretty well. I made a real wise decision. I didn't want to play the position my coach wanted me to play in football for my senior year. So I told him I'm not going to play. And I really showed him. So another big regret that I have there.
Oh. What do you think drove that at a young age? Was it like I know as an older man and you're now married and um, when you think back to your childhood, I know you mentioned your dad was still around, but he wasn't in the household. Was that as you look back subconsciously? driving some of like this rebellion? Were you trying to get attention? Were you trying to fit in? Were you wanting and desiring just like these older kids to kind of like bring you in and help provide a little bit of guidance and support to you? Like what, you know?
Yeah, I think the fact that I didn't have the structure and the discipline was huge. The first school I got kicked out of was when they first got divorced. It was the school year that I was in. I think it was the third grade, actually, technically. Um, and I got into trouble and overheard they were like, "Oh, it's a, his parents are going through divorce. He's having a hard time." And so I realized that I had an excuse to get into trouble. And the fact that I wasn't really disciplined for getting kicked out of that school, it was just like, "Oh, it's okay. He's going through some hard times. It'll be okay." I really think, being as a young boy, not, I got spanked when I was a kid,
Yep,
and so
same.
and then up until that point, not really having that physical discipline, I guess, was probably a contributing factor, amongst other things. Just not having my father in the home, having that older male kind of setting the example for me, and then just my friends being the example for me was, I think, a huge factor in me getting off course.
Yeah, because we're influenced by the people that we keep in our lives and that we're surrounded
100,
with. Okay. So
100%.
okay, so you're going through high school, good athlete, but pushing back, not doing what you should, not as disciplined as you should with sports. Coach wants you to play a position, you tell him basically to screw off. So probably hindered your ability to perform at a higher level. So are you getting into a lot of trouble in high school, or does that come after high school?
Came after high school. I was at that point in time spending. It was a public school, and so a lot of my friends, my best friend actually was from the inner city. Was from like mid city LA, which is real close to the Rampart district.
Mm-hmm.
In the mid '90s, that was a pretty big deal. They had that whole Rampart scandal take place with all the officers there, and a few of my buddies by that time, we're no longer from, younger teen, at that point in time, guys are getting from gangs. They're no longer from little crews. They start getting from the neighborhood. And there were some pretty big gangs for that time. I won't speak specifically on the name of the gang, but they were the biggest gang at that point in time. And guys started committing serious crimes. Guys started doing a lot of hits for the neighborhood and stuff like that. And so that's really when kind of things got pretty serious, and I really had to take a step back from everything. I did graduate high school, but shortly after high school, I realized that it was just not a good idea to be in my environment because of just the things that were taking place. So I decided to get out of town. Did a geographical change, took my addiction with me, went to Arizona, and was to be going to school. But again, I just found myself at school, not going to school. And at that point in time, I was selling drugs. I'd gotten into, moved up through everything besides meth and heroin by the time I was like 12, 13.
Wow.
And so, yeah, by that time, some of the older siblings that I had, my friends, a couple of them were overdosing on heroin. Heroin was the big thing back then. And so I stayed away from the meth and heroin. But had blown through everything, prescription, hallucinogenics, cocaine. And so by those later teen years, had been through all that. So I made the move to Arizona and just found myself on campus, was selling drugs to support my habit, wasn't going to school, was just partying. U of A, Tucson is a huge party school.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, was there for a couple years, just spinning my wheels, not doing anything. Shortly after, did another geographical change, went to Austin, Texas, was there in Austin, went there to go to school. Um, didn't go to school, started working for a sales company, actually did pretty good in that sales company. Got brought into management. I was there for a few weeks. They brought me into management, started running a section of the office. It was a fundraising company. Moved to then running a couple of sections of the office, and sure enough, I ended up running the entire office. Took it from being one of the bottom offices out of 53 locations to one of the top earning offices in the nation.
Nice. Now, I know you didn't mention the name of that big gang, which I'm good with and I support as well. Were you involved in that gang, or were you starting to see that if you stayed around, you were going to get sucked in and pulled into having to actually be a part of that gang because of friends and or just being in that location?
Yeah, I wasn't from the neighborhood.
Okay,
So I just was friends with a lot of the guys. They were pretty, they didn't press on me. I'd known these guys since we were all little kids,
got it.
since I was probably about, let's see, 12 years old. So they didn't, force me or try and jump me in or anything like that. And it got pretty severe. One of my buddies that I'd known from an early age, it was pretty well documented. He ended up being brought up on like 35 homicides. Um, all of them were special circumstances. They were like overkill. It was all over the news. It became a real big deal. But
Yeah.
I was able to stay out of it and not get too involved.
Okay.
Yeah,
But that's what drove you to move is you were at least able to see these things happening around you and recognized like, hey, if I stay here with these people in my life, that's what's next for me. And so you moved.
absolutely.
So you moved, and then you moved again. So you're in Arizona, and then you go to Texas. You're doing well in sales. You know, you're building up the company. So what's next on the path?
So they were going to open a location in Los Angeles. They knew I was from Los Angeles, so I was going to go open the location there. Time came, a couple weeks to the move, and one of the big wigs back in New Brunswick, one of their cousins had something take place, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to give this office to him. We want you to go open the location in Modesto." And I was like, "I'm not going to Modesto, man."
Why? It's
Uh,
such an awesome area.
yeah, I'll say it's a little chilly for me. Nah, it
Yeah.
just wasn't at that point in time. I've been gone from California for 6.5 years. Um, my mother, I transferred. I was, with my mother. She ended up getting remarried within my teenage years, and he was a professor at UCLA. Was also in the reserves, the Navy reserves, and so he was going to retire, and they were going to go down to Coronado. I didn't back then. I skateboarded a lot, and it wasn't as welcoming as it was back then. And so Coronado, a kid on a skateboard back in the late early '90s, was not really welcomed. And so I was just like, this is not really a community for me. So I moved in with my father, and I was out on my own at 17. That was a thing that I blew over. But I'd been gone from family for 6.5 years. My brother was in San Diego. He had started a construction company, and I'd missed my brother really. We'd grown up together. He was like my better half. And so I just saw it as an opportunity. Okay, I'll go to San Diego. We'll link up. I'll help him expand this construction company. And that's what I did. So we had an opening. He was doing some commercial and residential stuff here in San Diego. Our father at that time was a superintendent. He had owned a construction company back when we were kids. He got back in the industry, was a super on a custom spec house in like Bel Air. So there was an opportunity for us to go there and do small. They were upset with their masonry guys. So he said, "Hey, if you want to come bid a little sub slab in the backyard, do a retaining wall." So we jumped on it, and that just grew, went to us getting the entire backyard. And then we started going house to house on these custom spec houses and started making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Um, we both had heavy cocaine addictions in that time. And so we were just spending a lot of money, partying really hard. Here in we'd go back and forth from LA to San Diego. We were doing like the Hard Rock Intervention pool parties. We're all VIP everywhere. We thought we were real cool guys. But we were just knee deep in addiction. Cocaine addiction had gotten really bad. My brother dropped out one time in the middle of a casino floor. We were out at Havasu one time and was foaming at the mouth. Luckily, my father got there in time. My father didn't know about our addictions. He was kind of out of the loop. But just due to him finding him, getting the medics in time, my brother didn't die. So my brother started having heart issues from all the cocaine use, and that kind of started getting him to clean his act up a little bit. But yeah, we're doing really well in the construction industry. And at that point in time is actually when I first got in trouble. I was 26 and we were in Los Angeles, and an old girlfriend of mine from high school reached out to me, and we met up. Um, she turned into a pretty good looking young lady. She used to do a lot of modeling stuff for Bud Light and all these places. And so we started dating, and I started seeing red flags that I should have made a decision about to get out of the relationship. One day she was an alcoholic. She drank a lot, and one night she was wasted. And a week or two prior, she had destroyed my front phone, had flipped out on me. That's back then when, like at Verizon, you had to go be there for like 3 or 4 hours to get a new phone.
Yeah.
And a couple weeks later, she's drunk again, freaks out, attacks me. Um, I'm able to get out of the apartment. I had to jump off the second story, and I'd call my father to come help, to come meet me. And so I land off the patio on the ground. The cops were there as my father arrived. They arrest me. I had like 8 hematoma bite marks all over my body. She had a couple of bruises on her wrist from me just trying to
Yeah.
keep her from attacking me, and made the worst one of the worst mistakes of my life. I had no experience in the justice system, and even though I had no criminal record, I was scared. I took a deal which I shouldn't have taken. I should have taken it all the way to trial because I was innocent. I didn't do anything. There was holes in her testimony, and just from the physical things that I had, I would have beaten the case. It was a rhetorical case, but I just took a deal. I was in custody and was frightened at the fact I'd have to be, in prison until I was 30 years old, a couple of years, and took the deal. That made me a felon, and I'm still suffering the consequences of that today. It's been ridiculous. Um, was completing the probation there, did my time, got out. Was completing probation, and then I made another really bad decision due to my circumstances. My brother and I started butting heads a little bit. He had a girlfriend that he was dating, and so she kind of got in the way of us. And I was on my own, and again was hanging out with a guy that was one of my neighbors, and in this neighborhood. So I was hanging out with him, and we went over to one of his buddies' houses, and these guys were smoking meth, and I decided to, I'd done a bunch of drugs, and I was like, okay, I'll try this. Even though I'd stayed away from it and knew better, I tried smoking meth at 30 years old, and that was it, man. It was like, wow, I can do this. Like I was chasing stuff like this with cocaine for a long time, and I can just do a little bit of this, and it puts me on a whole nother level. And not glamorizing or anything. It was another one of the worst mistakes I made in my life,
Yeah.
and was just off to the races. Shortly after that, my job kind of was aware that I had some issues going on. I was started working for another, it was actually an HVAC company because I had separated from my brother. And they were like, hey, you need to get some help. And I was just such a knucklehead. Again, I was functioning. So I was like, well, I've never been late and I haven't missed a day of work. Like, I don't know, what are you talking about? I was like, I guess I don't have a job. So quickly became homeless, became unemployed, and started having to turn to crime to support my addiction. So I started committing crime around the city, petty level stuff. Um, However, it was significant enough, I guess, to um, find the police knocking on my door, which turned into a foot pursuit of me being in my boxers. I had Supermaned off the patio, was running down the middle of the street in just my boxers in broad daylight, and led to find out that they had flyers of me up in the cars, in the cop cars, that I was on one of their lists for LAPD Pacific Division, and it just turned into a real vicious cycle of addiction, crime. I'd get locked up. I'd get a program, come out of the program, go on the run. I'd get kicked out of the program. It just turned into a real vicious cycle. Um, and then this was January 2014, I got in trouble and they decided to max me out. They were like, you keep getting in trouble, we're giving you your prison suspension term, which was about a year and a half. During that time, I was notified to call home and um, called my father, and he told me that my brother was dead.
Jeez,
Uh,
bro.
a supervisor of ours, they had some words exchanged. There was a little bit of money owed, less than a couple $1,000s. They just, egos got involved, man. Egos, man. This is a prime example of why egos, something you guys talk quite frequently about. Um, just, he knew where my brother lived. The guy pulled up, got out the car, pulled out a weapon, let off a barrage of bullets. Brother made it to the front door. Guy got to the landing, turned, let off another barrage, took one through the door in the femoral, and then took one behind the ear. And yeah, so rest in peace. He was young, 27 years old, was a business owner, had a bright future, and all because of ego. It ended his story early. I know he was just called home though. God needed him up there to do his work. So, um, yep.
Was your brother still at that time like dealing with addiction as well? I mean, I know you said that he was a business owner, which doesn't mean that people can't do that and also be addicted. Or had he kind of like walked away from that, and was there a shift in his life?
Yeah, he tapered back. Like I'd mentioned with that incident with him in the casino dropping out, he was a little shorter and a little heavier set. Another thing I'll say is he was there's individuals, you've known a few, you might be one yourself, but just never has backed down from any situation, whether it be any man, anything, any situation. My father is like that, and my brother was like that. Um, Short and stocky though, and so he developed some scar tissue and stuff on his heart, was having heart issues, and so he'd gotten away from the cocaine use. Um, So he had gotten away from his addiction issues. The last few years he was alive, our relationship was not very close, which was unfortunate, something I regret to this day. Um, Last time I saw him was actually, of course, before I was arrested. And it was an interesting thing here, um, everything is energy, and I believe God speaks to us. And it was last time I saw him, I didn't know why. We were not getting along too well, and I was running amok, and so I had felt like I wanted to give something to my brother. So I'd opened the trunk and I gave him like some like a new pair of shoes, like a pair of pants and a shirt, a nice outfit that went together. I was like, I didn't know why I was here. I just want to give this to you, bro. And I needed to leave, so I gave him this hug and really felt like something was going on. And so we peeled off. I got in the car and I had a hard time leaving. I was to leave and go follow this guy and meet him at the bank. And, I had somebody in the car and I was like, man, I don't know what's going on. I feel like I need to stay. Had started the car, had put it in drive, had my foot on the brake, couldn't get my foot off the brake. It took me a while and I finally got my foot off the brake, but it was still just kind of coasting and slowing down and not leaving the area. And I didn't know why. Eventually I just took off and left. But that was the last time I saw my brother. Really,
Dang,
really interesting.
dang, man. Yeah, I can relate to what you're saying because I still remember the last time I saw my grandfather, and I remember not wanting to leave my grandparents because I still remember that morning. I was home on leave and I went up to see my grandparents and spend a little time with them. And my grandfather was up early. My grandma and grandpa were always up super early, like super early. My grandmother was always reading her Bible, praying over the family members, drinking her coffee in the morning. My grandpa, would just be up drinking his coffee, preparing for the day. And like I'll never forget like the vision of him standing in like not the doorway, but the the area between the living room of the couch I was sleeping on to their kitchen area, and him just standing there with a big smile, and me waking up to that and spending some time with him that morning, and like it was the same thing. Like I did not want to leave, and I had to, and it was like I knew, and I didn't want to admit that because it didn't make sense, and I was like, no. But then I remember leaving, and I remember calling Amanda, and we were, just getting kind of serious. And I remember calling her and like getting super emotional and crying, like telling her as I was leaving, like I felt like that was my last goodbye.
Wow.
And it was.
Wow.
And it was. So you experienced that with your brother, which is, as you think back, a very unfortunate thing. But I mean, your brother loved you. You loved your brother. There's no denying that. And it's unfortunate when these things in life happen because it's one, it's unfortunate that it happens because you're like, no, I want more time. I want more memories. But then it's also a good reminder, like, man, time is so limited. It's so just precious, and
Absolutely.
we don't know. We don't know. Um, so you call your dad. He tells you that your brother passed away, and this is like your call before you go get locked up again.
I was locked up. I
Okay,
was
you were
in LA
locked.
County Jail. Originally, when I first started doing time, which was a few years prior, the first charge I had was violent. So that made me a high security. And so most of the time would go out to Supermax. LA County Jail has a Supermax. I've put this out there before, and people are like, "Oh, Supermax doesn't exist in county." It does. It's at Pitches Detention Center, which is out in Lake Castaic.
Mm-hmm.
It's another housing facility for LA County Jail. They have a Supermax there, at East Max, a medium north, and medium south. Um, I never used during my incarceration time. I just saw that majority of issues in jail and in prison stem from debts, drug debts, people getting high, and other things like gambling and stuff like that. So never used while I was locked up. I never gambled. Never did any of that stuff. I just saw that as a liability. Um, while I was locked up, through I guess through some structure and discipline that I did have, I ran a good program. I'd get up really early. I'd get in my Bible. I would work out. I made sure my bed area was clean, um, and just programmed, as you know all about.
Mm-hmm.
And so throughout me doing time, I would end up getting put in positions of responsibility or being like a key holder, a shot caller, whatever you want to call it, just due to having a decent head on my shoulders. Everything in there is very segregated. Everything's segregated. You go in, you go with your race because that's just protocol. If you don't, if there's going to be issues, and then they run the program down to you. These are the phones you use. These are the tables you sit at. These are the toilets you use. You spit in the urinal. You don't spit in the sink. These sinks. These are the showers we use. There's a whole list of protocols, which is very similar with, in the military.
Yeah.
And there's a hierarchy as well. You have a guy that will have the dorm. You'll have a guy that has that facility. You'll have a guy that has the whole thing. It's very structured. And so just knowing how to follow protocol and not being, a dumbass, excuse my language, I just found myself in these positions. And so that transferred through a lot of different places, in jail, in LA County Jail. Um, so eventually I was at a lower security place when I found this out. I was at medium south, when I got the news about my brother. But back then, jail was a different place. It's not like it is today. Back then is when, there were like a lot of gangs within the sheriffs, the departments. There were, in custody, stuff like that. LA County Jail had a pretty infamous one. Was like the 3,000 boys. These guys ended up getting indicted. That's when the sheriff of LA County got indicted. I think it was Sheriff Lee Baca and his under sheriff Tanaka. They got indicted along with a bunch of deputies. There was just a lot of abuse taking place in there. These guys were smashing dudes with their mag light. Um, Now it's a lot different. However, I think there should be a happy medium. I don't think the way they're doing things today is really having a positive impact. So I think things kind of need to get back to the way they were a little bit. But
How long was this current time in jail going to be? I mean, and so, and another question: how long had you been in jail for this session when they said, "Hey, make your call"? You call your dad. He tells you that your brother has been killed. Like, is this right at the beginning? And you're like, "Hey, I have X amount of time." Does that make you change the way you think and are like, "Hey, you know, like if this happens to my brother over a business dispute on the outside, like I need to start getting my stuff together on the inside." Like are these things shaping the way that you're thinking, or are you just kind of like in the motions going through these things? What's your thought process?
so this did happen towards the beginning of my sentence.
Okay.
It was a 16-month sentence, and I was arrested January 20th. April 12th was when I got the call. Actually, it was the 13th. He died on the 12th, Easter weekend that year. Um, and so it did resonate with me to where it was a real shell shock. Again, where you mentioned on time is our most valuable asset. I really came to grasp with how important that is, and just the situations I was putting myself in, getting incarcerated, how that was snatching away chunks of time from me. So really, I did start to buckle down quite a bit in, my what I wanted for my future. So I got out almost a year and a half later, a year and a few months. At that point in time, I was off paper because they had maxed me out, and so I wanted to go to San Diego, get out of LA, be close to my mom, help support my mother, just because it was just such a parent's worst nightmare is to lose a child.
Yeah.
And so um, I had been gone from my mother. We weren't very close, spend that much time together since I was, I think, about 14 years old. So now being um, 32, I wanted to spend more time with my mother, spend some more time with family. Um, it was challenging because getting out a year and a few months after, everybody had kind of had a chance to deal with the situation with my brother. Everything for me was very fresh, though. When you're inside doing time, it's two different worlds. There's the outside world and then there's the inside, which it's a whole world. And it can be quite challenging to live in the outside world, things that are taking place. If you stay in that outside world, it can make doing your time very difficult. And so that was one of the things I realized with doing time is I just have to block out the outside world and focus on what my world was at that point in time, just because things could get serious. And so it just was a way to really kind of keep sanity, was just focusing on what I had going on at that time. So when I got out, it was very fresh. It was hard for me to deal with. Bringing it up would cause emotions with people, so I wouldn't want to bring it up. Um, it was really it was a challenging um, situation to deal with. Um, I think that was when it started bringing up. I think one of the biggest things in life is forgiveness. I'll start speaking on that. So I had yet to forgive myself. I took a lot of responsibility for what happened with my brother because, me being the older sibling, father, issue. So it was hard for me not to take responsibility. Um, Friends that I have from the neighborhood that my brother knew as well were like, bro, we just didn't know what this was going on. If we had known what was going on, you already know what's up. I was like, I know. And also being incarcerated, the guy, he got caught the next day with a murder weapon and made a statement. So he went into LA County Jail, and I was in LA County Jail at the time.
Jeez.
Um, uh, and so I had a little bit of pull in there. And so when he went in there, I was asked if I wanted him to be rehoused somewhere, if I wanted to put things together and do something or whatever. And I actually turned that down. I think that was probably one of the biggest things that I had done initially in my faith. Um, because when I was in my incarceration, my father, I had reached out to him. He had been there through me with me doing time. He had come back into his faith, had been baptized again, and so that's what it really got me back on my faith. Like I had mentioned earlier, me reading my Bible while I was incarcerated. But that was probably the first big decision that I've made, like of forgiveness. Not taking action, having something done in there. Um, Fast forward again to being outside, struggling to not take responsibility for it. Then the court date came up where the guy was going to be sentenced, and my father, who was dealing with this situation with the investigators and everything, he had made a decision to offer a deal for the defendant, of giving him the possibility of parole. It was a slam dunk, premeditated first degree murder case. And my father put the option of him taking a deal to receive the possibility of parole. So, of course, the guy jumped all over it. So, at the day of sentencing, when we were allowed to make the family impact statements, whatever it's called, uh, this was another huge moment for me. A few family members, friends got up and spoke. I read something that my mother had written because she just couldn't handle being there.
Yeah.
And then my father spoke, and he read something my brother had written to him a few months before he passed, which was another godsend. But then my father turned around and made a move towards the defendant. Bailiffs got up and were like, but my father approached him and said, "Hey, I want to let you know, like, I forgive you." Um, my father asks that I forgive because I need to be forgiven for what I've done. And then he told him that, I hope you can find God in you got some time. Like, I hope find your faith and, find Christ and ask for forgiveness. And that was powerful, man. That was like, whoa. My father, he's old school, he's Sicilian. A lot of that family's from New York. He's a different man today than he was as a younger man. And that was huge. That really resonated with me because still at that point in time, I really struggled. I was like looking at this guy's family, like your mother, your father, your dog, and everybody with him.
Yeah.
Um, absolutely. And then after we were let out of court, I was watching them, and I saw the defendant. He has a couple of daughters, and I saw his mother, and who I guess was his stepdad. And I just really realized that both families lost.
Yeah.
You know, he's not going to see his daughters grow up. I'm never, I won't see my brother again until we're reunited. Um, and so everybody lost, man. And so it's like, I realized God had me incarcerated when it happened for a reason, bro. Because, if I was out, you already know what's up, man. So,
Yeah. You be spending
you know,
you be spending your
y-
life behind bars.
absolutely, man. And then my family loses both of their children,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of growing right there, man. And took me a while, but today I forgive that dude. Um, I know in heat of the moment, acting off of emotions, acting out, letting our ego get in the way, it causes us to make some bad decisions. So so I started chewing on forgiveness, man. I've learned today to forgive myself for the things I've done. I've learned to forgive. I think it's important first and foremost that an individual forgive themselves, because we're human, we make mistakes, and we will continue. We're sinners. We will continue to make mistakes.
Yeah.
And then also to turn outwards, I forgive, everybody, my parents, they were making the best decisions they were making at the time. I forgive that dude. I forgive everybody, man. I ask for forgiveness. I do my best to ask for forgiveness every day. There's a few days that go by that I don't, but I do know that that's one of the biggest things, Um, and so why a lot of this stuff resonates with me, man. The stuff that you guys talk about in Echelon Front and just everything Jocko talks about, just it hits home, man. So,
Well, I don't want to speak on Lucas's behalf, so I'll have him share his thoughts. But I'm pretty positive we align on this. Like, I just want to say I'm proud of you, bro, for you to be able to work through that, to be able to, you know, forgive your parents and all these other things, forgive your brother, forgive friends, is huge. But then for you to be able to actually forgive a guy that murdered your brother, um, I understand why we're supposed to. But man, I'm really proud of you because that one, I don't know how long it would take for me to be able to do that. Even though I know I need to, but I don't know how long it would take. And then for you to be able to forgive yourself is huge. I don't think enough people understand the power of when you can forgive yourself, because forgiveness is a sign of your maturity as a human, as a leader. And I think most people understand, like, yes, hey, I need to forgive other people, but I think a lot of people fail to recognize the power of freedom when you actually forgive yourself. Lucas, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I would absolutely agree. And, Anthony talked a little bit about like his struggle with addiction. And one of the things that I've always found, like working with people in recovery and, leading step studies and that kind of thing, is that the first step is like it's like getting out of denial and realizing that like there is a problem there, and that to an extent that you're like powerless to control your own actions, that you've come to realize that I was powerless to control my own actions. And whether that's because like you view addiction as a disease that's like absolutely got control of you, or whether it is you just let yourself get to this place where that's what you were doing, right? And that you had created this cycle to where that sin was something you were always going to fall into. And the reason that I think that so many people who are in recovery or who have gone through step studies and things like that, that they're so much quicker to forgive and to realize that is because they realize first and foremost that that they do sin, and that if they are going to hold other people accountable for their sin, that they need to hold themselves for it. And that if they're going to be able to get past the things that are in their life that they need to move on from in order to grow, then they've got to learn to forgive themselves. And I think for a lot of people, at least it's been my experience, that when I'm counseling people or talking with them, the struggle that they have in forgiving others is because they don't recognize the sin in themselves. And that's why I recommend for anybody, like whether you're struggling with addiction or whether you've been stone sober your entire life, like doing a step study will reveal how much sin you actually have in your life. Because if you've never struggled with an addiction of any kind, you probably don't think that you need to do that internal work.
Yeah.
But it's revealed in these situations where you're holding onto grudges, where you're struggling to forgive other people. And when you get to a place where, you feel like you have some sort of moral superiority over the people around you,
Yeah.
that's when you enter into this spot where you actually put yourself in spiritual danger with your own relationship with Christ and in your ability to forgive and have a relationship with other people. So yeah, I would echo what JP said. Like, Anthony, definitely super proud of you for being able to do that. I think that that's a tremendous thing to be able to do. And I think of, there was a pretty publicized case here in the DFW area where an officer came in and ended up, she walked into the wrong apartment, ended up shooting a guy, ended up killing him. And one of the very first things that like happens within that family is that the dad, the parents, the brother forgive the person who was the shooter. They're like, listen, we believe in Christ. We do that. And matter of fact, he went to school with David Lee.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so David, like they didn't really know each other very well, but knew of each other, and so it was one of those things though where people saw that and they're like, oh my gosh, this forgiveness thing is incredible. It's got a tremendous impact, just like people watching on, just the testimony that gives to what is actually happening in your faith. I do have a question about, you said like your first big act of reengaging in faith was choosing not to make the call to get this guy rehoused, right? What was that like for you as you're processing all of that information, as you're wrestling with what you would have done in your past life now that you've like given yourself over, rededicated your life to Christ? Like what was that internal process like? Because I think a lot of people will look at that and be like, oh, well, that seems like an easy decision to make. And it certainly wasn't.
Correct. No, it was not an easy decision to make, because it would have there would have been no it would have been able to have been executed, and that's that, and it's done.
Yeah.
And your
Um,
hands are relatively clean from the outside perspective, right? You would have had
right.
anonymity of the whole thing. Like, oh, yeah, something bad happened to the guy that killed your brother. It's like, oh, okay.
Oh,
Oh,
shucks.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
I'm housed in this other facility that
That's-
happened over there.
That's
Like,
so,
crazy. Yeah.
I just say, JP, brother, I feel you, bro. It's it's a challenge, man, forgiveness. And there's times where things come up and I'm kind of like bite my lip, and it's, I just have to like remember to like, okay, like, it is what it is, and not forgiving only keeps me complacent in life. It
Mhm.
doesn't allow me to move forward and to process. So I just say that for you, man, because I feel you, understand. Um, and that decision, it really, I don't know why I was able to make. I mean, I knew it was easier. It would have been an easier choice than, I don't know if it would have been easy. I don't know how the right word to put on it, but if I were to do something myself, it would have been a lot more work. I'd have to put a little more work into it than just saying a couple of words and then getting it done. So
Yeah.
I knew at that point in time it was like, okay, like this can happen really easily. And and I started processing, like, is that something I want to do? Like, does that make me any better than him?
Oof.
Which it does not. And so I think that, and just really being in my faith, just how important that is to me, it's everything. And so what does that make me? That'd be something I'd have to sleep with at night. That would be something that nobody would know about except for me. And then that's it. So um it was a challenge, but I knew it was the right decision to make, you know. But there are times where I do struggle. I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, I forgive him. It's all good. It's all hunky dory. You know what I mean? Like, absolutely not, man. Like, you know, uh, I've seen a lot of things. I've been through a lot of things. A lot of things that I'm not going to talk about. And so, don't get it twisted. Like, I'm not just some like, you know,
Well, I
nice
mean,
guy.
well, no, you are a nice guy. It doesn't mean that you don't struggle with flesh and blood, right? It doesn't mean that you don't
Right.
struggle with those thoughts, those temptations. I mean, the Bible says, hold every thought captive for a reason. You're still going to have those thoughts creep back in, correct?
Yeah, well, 100%,
I
right?
mean,
Yeah,
you're not.
First John says that the person who says that they're without sin only deceives themselves. Like that's it. You're not lying to anybody else because we all see you.
Yeah.
You know?
And so, yeah, those thoughts you have, like, all right, cool, you're human. We all have those thoughts. I mean, I still have thoughts creep in from just things in life, and anger will flare up, and I recognize, like, okay, cool, no, I can't partner with that, because when I do, nothing good comes of it. And so, cool, I hold that thought captive. I pray about it. I surrender it. I give it to God. And, I claim no spirit other than the Holy Spirit is allowed into my thoughts, into my heart, into my mind. And, and try to push those things out. It doesn't mean that things are going to be easy just because you forgive somebody. Those thoughts are still going to creep in, and it's how you handle those thoughts and how you hold them captive. And it's what you do, moving forward.
And I do think, if I can interject, that like this type of discussion is what makes the the conversations that we have on our podcast so appealing, because I hate the kind of like, for lack of a better way to put it, like the whitewashed Christianity that a lot of people live. That's like, they come in and they're like, no, you know what? I've never had a bad thought towards anybody and never had that. And I'm like, you're a liar.
Yeah, there's
We're
no,
like,
there's
that's
no
it.
way. No matter how good of a life you live, there's no way you don't have those thoughts.
Yeah, like the pastor that mentored me, and I've told this story before to a few guys, is that like when I knew for sure that, and this guy, he's not a he grew up on a farm in Mississippi, and doesn't really have like a violent bone in his body. But he was describing something, and he was like, when people say stuff like that, it makes me just want to rip out their throat and spit at it. And I was like, I feel that way. Right? Like, I obviously, like, I'm not going to do that to somebody, but I feel that way. And being able to have, just candid conversations about the fact that, like, hey, you know what? These things do exist. These feelings do exist within us. But then, like, calling it out and saying, hey, you know what? We have to be better than that. And I think that, your story about this in particular, Anthony, is that, because it's not just the imagined thing that the white collar guy has. Is like, oh, I would go down to if this guy does this again, I'm gonna. It's like, no, you're not. Shut up. You're not gonna do anything violent in the workplace. You really enjoy your job and your Mercedes too much to ever get a stain on it. Like, you're not actually gonna do anything, but you had the capabilities to do it. You had the abilities to do it, and then you chose.
And the desire.
Yeah,
but he
yeah,
overcame
right.
that.
Yeah, right. So all of those things, and then you chose to forgive, and that not only speaks tremendous amounts about your character, but also the work of the Holy Spirit within you.
Yeah.
And how, like, Christianity is so much different than so many other religions, because it's not about seeking that vengeance for ourselves. It's about allowing the Lord to have that. Vengeance is his, and I'm going to follow in the path of Christ, which is not the path of least resistance. It's the path of most personal resistance, where I've got to reconcile forgiving this guy instead of doing the easy thing, which is to sin. And man, that's, I don't know, it just speaks volumes, not just about like your character, but also about what Christ has done. I think testimonies like that are some of the most powerful, because it's easy to say, like, no, I would do something, or I would have something done, but it's hard to say, you know what, no, I'm going to forgive this person. I'm going to find a way to move on with my life.
Yeah, and I know we're getting ready to transition into it, and I think, Anthony, that's what's given you the ability to connect with so many men, to help them make transformations physically, spiritually, mentally. And so, but before we get into that, what was your first introduction to extreme ownership and dichotomy of leadership, like to these principles you've mentioned a few times? Walk us through what your first interaction with those was, and what was that like?
Absolutely. So it actually took place a few years later. I had um, come to San Diego, and things didn't work out. Life happens, and so was working with the family, and things just weren't working out. And so I didn't stick it out, and I made a bad decision, and I went back to my addiction. In sobriety, life happens still, and there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs. And so a little bump in the road came, and I buckled, and I didn't stay on the path. Fell back into addiction, turned San Diego into a movie scene. It was nuts, and ended up getting locked up again. It was on a high-speed pursuit, and ended up getting caught, thankfully. It was October 5th, 2018, which is my clean date. So that happened. I was by the grace of God, was given a program. Shouldn't have been given a program. I was looking at multiple felony charges. However, I go into courtroom, and the judge was like, I feel like offering you a program. Would you like a program? And I just like looked up and thanked God, and took the program. Was in the program, had about a year clean, and the U.S. Marshals show up, said they had a federal warrant for me, I got federally indicted. Was controlled by a distribution charge, something I had done a few years prior in my madness. And so I knew at that point in time, I'm playing for everything, in my opinion, comes down to good versus evil. I've been playing for the wrong team for a long time. Now I'm playing for the right team. And that was just the enemy trying to get me off course. After I changed my life, I'm really walking the straight and narrow for this to come up, but I took accountability for it, took 100% responsibility. It's my actions, my doing. I put myself in this situation. So I'd been doing time. I knew how to do time. I was like, okay, I'm going to really work on my personal development while I'm off doing this federal time. And so before I was sentenced, I was housed in Orange County Jail, which has a contract with the feds. And it was when I was in Orange County Jail, I'm really reading a lot of personal development stuff, all sorts of things. And another guy that was in there who was reading the same kind of stuff was like, "Here, I got this book for you." Grabbed it, and it was The Dichotomy of Leadership. And so, again, I was in a position of leadership in there, and I'm sitting there up really early, and I'm reading that book in the day room at a table. And one of the deputies comes out and looks to see what I'm reading, and he's like, "What are you doing reading Jocko stuff, man?" And I was like, and during the time, I would have more. I'd get along more with the COs or the deputies, just because I didn't have a lot in common with a lot of these other guys. A lot of these other guys just, that's their whole world, and they're really just a certain caliber of people. I'm not saying I'm better than anybody, but we were different kind of people. And so I had more in common with a lot of, these other guys. And so just turned into talking, and I read the book, and it just really, really resonated with me. And just like, because I'm all about a program. I'm all about, having structure, having a routine. Again, getting up early, getting in my studies, working out, like making sure my time is slotted throughout the day to where I'm making the most of my time, because now I'm aware of how time is my most important asset. So went through Dichotomy of Leadership, was just phenomenal, man. I just really took off at that point in time. Got moved, got rehoused. I went to the feds. That at that point in time, that's when I had extreme ownership get sent to me. Um, was loving it. Just, you know, I could go on and on about that book. I think it's just so applicable, not just for business, but it's just applicable for life. Like, as you guys came up with that, in the battlefield, they're universal tools. It's the same thing I feel like
Yes.
tools that I've learned in recovery. There's a universal set of tools, and these tools can be applied to anywhere in life, whether it's personal, business, etc. Um, and then by random chance, my mother, who was sending me books that I would request, she just went ahead and sent me. She saw Discipline Equals Freedom was another book by him, and so she had just sent me that book. And this was, I think, was before Leadership Strategy and Tactics came out.
Yes.
And so I got Discipline Equals Freedom, and that was just like, man, I'm in prison, and it's just like, I'm getting up early, and I'm just, things that go, I think one of the first few pages, I think, is why. And so talks about doing it for the people that aren't here anymore. I was like, okay, like speaking my language. And then just moving on through, man, like application of discipline is another one of the first ones, and I was just like, man, like this thing, I wouldn't blow through it. I'd read a page or two at a time and like really resonate with it and like see how this really applied to my life. And just powerhouse stuff. Um, this took place, like I'd read this thing, I would only do a page a day, and I burned through it multiple times. I have original copy that I have that's over there. Hey babe, will you grab that? It's off the top up there. You might need the booster. That Discipline Equals Freedom book up there, the softback one. But I've gone through this thing. I'll show you it in a minute, bro. It's all super highlighted. It's like worn out. I burned through this thing multiple times. And so one of the times was really crazy is I'll get to it, but eventually I got to victory once I was released, and I seen Dean, and Dean's like, "Yo, where you been at?" Because I know Dean from back in the day in San Diego. And he's like, I was like, "Bro," I was like, "You don't even want to know, dude. Like, I've been, and and Jocko comes walking up. And so I tell him this story. It's the first time I met Jocko. And so I'm in federal prison, and I was in this RDAP program, which is residential drug abuse program. And I ended up being a mentor in this drug program. And so what would happen is I'd get up at a podium in front of a unit full of dudes in prison, and I would start reading Discipline Equals Freedom to them, to this unit full of dudes. It
Bro.
was like super rap. Some of these dudes would catch it, some of these dudes didn't. But it was just like, it was just insane. I mean, like, as you can see here, man, this thing is just highlighted through and through.
Yeah.
Um, this thing's all worn. I mean, you can see this thing's got time on it, bro. Uh, and so I would pass it on to other people. And here's another good thing too, man, is like I just resonated so well. I would sit there in my cell. I'd be up early in the morning, and I would literally write out pages and send it to some of my family members. My older brother, Danny, he was like a big dude who's always struggled with his weight. So I'm like writing out no sugar-coated lies and sending it to his ass, and, and like, he has a daughter, my niece, and she struggles with addiction. And so I would write out some of these pages and I would mail it to him, bro. Bam, bam, every morning I'm writing it out. And was just really helped get me on, like, like there's so many times I got to the end of my sentence and they hit our unit, they tear it up, they pull off the mirror in my cell, or I go back into my cell after they leave, or as we're coming back in, and I see a bunch of concrete all over the place. And so I immediately go to get the captain, bring him in, and I'm like, look, there's concrete here, there's some powder. I don't want to be held responsible for this. I don't know what this is. And he's like, oh, there was a safe behind your mirror. And I'm like, excuse me? He's like, yeah, they're going to probably come give you some write-ups here. So just stand by. Okay. So apparently they pulled the mirror off and there was a safe behind my mirror and it had two loose pieces of rebar in it. And so they write me up a disciplinary shot, which is some 100 series shots. And in the feds, a murder is a 100 series shot. These are the highest, infraction you can get. And so they wrote one up for the rebar tools that could be used as a weapon to stab somebody, also as an escape tool, and a few other things. And so here I am, 60 days to the house, and I'm looking at these charges that could potentially give me a lot more time. And long story short, I end up getting it beat, but the next day I open up the book Discipline Equals Freedom to where I'm at, and it was on that page darkness, and it was just very coincident. I don't believe in coincidence. I
Yeah.
just believe God speaks to me through different things, and so it was just been a staple for me, man. I ended up getting that beat, and because I was, had nothing to do with that. Why would I? I don't, number one, need a weapon to walk the yard that I was on. It was a very soft yard, and number two, I'm getting ready to go home. So luckily that there was no repercussions from that. But got out, got to the halfway house, followed protocol. I got home confinement very quickly. At that point in time, my brother Danny, who I've been writing these letters to, he was like, "Hey, I want to take you somewhere." He'd gone to high school with a guy who financially backed opening up a gym. So he takes me over to Victory, and I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute! Like, I think I know about this gym." And so go there, and Joe's there. He knows Joe. They're friends. Joe Menino. Shout
Yeah.
out to Joe, man. Thank you. So they take me there, and Joe just opens me up, dude. He just like welcomes me in there. Here's a membership tag. Come whenever you want. And so I started going to Victory, and I got an ankle monitor on my leg, right? And so that first time happened where I seen Dean and I seen Jocko, and I told Jocko about that, and he was like, "Really, you were doing that?" And I'm like, "Yes, sir." And he was like, "Man, that's badass." I was like,
Yeah.
"Absolutely." And so I started going to Victory, man. Start rolling. I was there midday one day, and this was at Midway in Point Loma before it caught on fire. And I was there midday one day, and Echo and Jocko were there usually midday. And you go in there, and I'm talking to them, and I don't know if it was Echo or somebody was like, "Is that your anti-leg lock device that I had on my ankle monitor?" And it was pretty cool, man. Had the opportunity to roll with Echo, man. He's just a beast.
And so
And
gentle also with his jujitsu. when he
Say it
wants to.
again.
And he's also, for the most part, very gentle with his jujitsu because he is so strong
Yeah.
and, more
Yeah.
importantly, very technically skilled. And it's a dangerous combo.
Yeah, I was like, man, you said it, nailed it on the point. He's so powerful, so strong, and he's just so built. I mean, it was like, he, of course, ends up on top of me, and he's got these like huge legs, and I'm just like, dude, what do I even do with this guy, man? Like, and I'm a novice, I didn't, I actually grew up in LA. I was in the Palisades. And so, Hicks and Gracie had a school in
Yep.
the Palisades.
Yeah.
And so I actually, knew his son Hoxton. We were friends when we were kids, and we were actually pretty close up until the time he passed, which was pretty unfortunate. I used to go to their house. I know I used to drive Crone around in my car. I used to give him rides. Um, I know Quan, Colleen, their sisters. I used to go to their house all the time.
Wow.
I'd actually, when he ended up missing, they had contacted me, asked if I knew where he was, and I told them I hadn't heard from him. And that whole situation was really sad, man.
Yeah.
But I was a knucklehead then. I didn't take rolling seriously, and so I never really got too involved until I started going to Victory. But started rolling, and some dudes were talking about hitting some competitions. I was like, I might as well do it too. So I think first one I did was Naga, and won my bracket, got a gold medal, and did another competition. I did grappling X, and I won my bracket in that as well. So I got another gold medal. Um, just it was just awesome crowd of people, and I think jujitsu is such a great tool for life. I grew up in martial arts. I grew up doing karate, stand-up stuff, fought in competitions doing that. Started when I was 3 and a half. My father was really big in it. He was real close to Ed Parker, who was like brought the system to the States. Elvis was involved, and so my dad was uh, Elvis came down, wanted to spar with my dad. My dad won California state champions, and so Ed Parker was like, "All right, Jack, just don't punch Elvis in the face," And
That's
there's
wild.
That's awesome, man.
yeah, pretty cool stories, man. And so it's just fast forward. So I came out with the mindset of wanting to give back. Like if I can help kids is like really what was in my mind is like, if I started reading a lot while, I was reading a lot while I was locked up. And so not only once I started coming across, Jocko stuff, I was also reading some other stuff. So I read Adam Brown's story, which is just really resonated with me. Everything he went through, and then just I mean, that dude was such a savage. And the fact that he was a believer, that he was a Christian, I was like, man, this is my kind of dude. Um, I read that book, Fearless, like 3 times before I was released. But I started reading, and so I started coming across a lot of parallels, with guys, in the military and incarcerated. It's like you're away from your family, guys struggle with addiction, the whole transition to society issue, I mean, is a real deal. The whole thing of kind of like, resonated a lot as well because like my identity, I had an identity for so long, and then it was like now like I'm different, like I've lost, like like I've lost that, like so I was searching to find my purpose, as it is with the dudes that have served, like
Mm-hmm.
um and so I had that mindset, wanting to give back, and then also if I could come around some guys, that'd be awesome, meet some dudes that are in the teams or whatever, that'd be a dream come true. So here are these things starting to unfold, and met a guy who is an officer, and actually started taking me I'll just speak on it. I know, like, but so started taking me to NSW ATC, at the end of Strand,
Yeah.
and started going and doing the combatives class with some of the team guys, man, which was just like
That's
blew
cool.
my mind. Was super grateful. It was such an honor. And this guy is like a really good friend of mine today. He's been really supportive of me and has been super influential in me just doing what I'm doing today. I mean, things just keep unfolding. It was like, uh, came across Eddie Penny on the Sean Ryan show, ended up jumping in his Unafraid thing. And so was on Zooms. It was the first time I shared my testimony to 40, 50 dudes that are all, military or LEO, et cetera. And I was kind of not sure how my story would be received, my testimony,
Yeah.
but it was received well. And that kind of gave me the confidence to kind of start putting it out there a little bit. And so I was at Victory, and a guy in the gym was like, he was like, "Hey, I seen you in Coronado." And I was like, "What?" Because my mother, they have a restaurant in Coronado.
Which,
And so
which one?
started talking to this guy. Yeah, it's on the ferry landing. It's right next to POE's. It's a place called Spiro's. It's that Greek place right there. So
Dude, I know that place.
yeah, a lot of dudes do, man.
Bro,
Yeah, so Spiro's my stepdad. He's yeah, so there's a lot, it's like,
bro.
yeah, bro. I know, right? Like, that's God, bro. That's all I'm saying is God is good, bro. Like, you have no idea how much of an honor it is for me to be speaking here today, to all the work that I've done, bro. Like, putting in like nights and days and years, bro. Like incarcerated and in on like to be sitting here today
Yeah,
blows my mind. And I can't, there's no way you can't say God has a major part in it, because
he
it's
does.
just not possible. It's not
Yeah.
possible, bro. Like, coincidences don't exist.
Well, coincidence is a made up word to take away from divine intervention, by the way.
Amen. I respect it.
There is no uh, original word for it. Like, it doesn't root back to anything. And so if you think about before, people were saying coincidence, it was always, oh, that's divine intervention or God's plan or God's timing.
Providence, something like that.
Yeah, something that. And so
Right.
coincidence is a word that was made up to take away from God's divine intervention and his plan and his glory. So I love that you recognize that as well. And before we get back onto your story, dude, they have really good food. I love, dude, they have really good food.
Bro, come out. I
No,
got you. It's on
dude,
the
my
house,
wife and I,
dude.
no,
I got
no,
you.
absolutely not. I will continue to support that business. But my wife and I are actually headed to San Diego at the end of this month. And we're trying to
Let's
figure out, like,
go.
hey, where in San Diego do we want to stay? And now I think we really need to stay using some of my points in Coronado so I can be close to that restaurant.
I got you, bro.
Sorry,
There's no way you're going there and you're paying for food. All
well,
right.
I will
It's on
disguise
it.
myself.
That's true. He will.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
Back to your story, which has been incredible. All right,
Thank you.
so you're okay. So you got plugged into Victory MMA. You have some friends that are in the NSW community. You're getting to see that. You're getting to train with these guys. You're training jiu-jitsu. You're competing. You're surrounding yourself with the type of people that you know are gonna elevate you, that are going to have positive influence. You're super disciplined with working out, routine, structure. And I know one of the things that you do, Anthony, is you help guys with nutrition and working out. I love where that originated, because when you were locked up, you were doing that, right? You were understanding macros and so talk us through that real quick, because if you can do that there and educate yourself on that there, which is a pretty rough environment to be trying to make those things a priority, I think it takes away all of our excuses. Mine, I'll just, I'll speak for myself. It takes away from my excuses as to why I can't track and do what I need to be doing when it comes to my
Love it.
nutrition. So
Absolutely.
share
Absolutely,
that
dude.
with
No
us, brother. I
excuses.
love like when you and I have talked about that, and obviously I know you talk about it on your social media, which, by the way, I know we'll share. But if you want to follow Anthony, which actually you need to be following Anthony, it's at Unchained_fit, which is an awesome username, by the way. Unchained_fit. So talk us through let's transition to that way.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So it's really started kicking into high gear. I was always, my father taught me about health, and so I was always very conscious. And so, but really in federal prison, I got dialed in that RDAP program that I was in. They were doing a lot of CBT classes, and they were coming up with SMART goals, and so it just fit with everything that I was on path with. And so I made it a SMART goal to get under 10% body fat. And so I it was a real issue to get going, but I ended up getting the math equations to get my BMR. So I did the math equation, figured out my BMR, set myself at a little bit of a calorie deficit. While this was taking place, it took me about 2 or 3 months to get from the kitchen the caloric breakdown of everything they serve on the menu. Finally got my hands on that. And then I would only eat a little bit of stuff from the kitchen. But then I would also, majority of the food I would get would be from commissary. And so I would get just a lot of like rice, fish, and not much other things than that. Um, but so I just started tracking everything longhand, man. I got a journal. It's up over there. I'd hate to ask wifey to go get that one too, but
Yeah.
I got it all. I still have the journal. It's all written down. It's a small black journal. I think it's the blue one, sweetheart. But the small black journal, it's blue. We've got the blue outside. There's just two small leather bound black journals up there. I still have it today. And so I just started tracking all my food. Um, everything. And so I had my start point. I actually still have the receipts as well from at Yard. In the feds, it's a little bit bougier than the state pins. And so they had a body comp scale. So I was actually able to uh, figure out where I was at. So I started off, I can recall offhand, I was 217 and I was like 19% body fat. So I started tracking, started getting down and just started dropping boom, 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 boom. And I think within 6 months, I finally achieved my goal of getting under 10% body fat. You're the best, sweetheart. I think this is it. Yeah. So I mentioned I have all the receipts of all the like the times when I did all like my weigh-ins and everything. Yeah, here's a bunch of them, dude.
Bro,
I mean, this is like
this is why people have to
times.
watch on YouTube so they can see that.
There's that. And I finally got under 10% body fat, man. Yeah, and then you can see here also, dude, it's like this is
Bro,
from in prison and this is me tracking my food,
jeez.
you know. Um,
Wow.
and so it goes all the, and so, but that's where it's at, being disciplined, being structured, getting the data. And so I did it, got under 10% body fat, was encouraged some guys there as well. I encouraged some of the CEOs there. There was a couple of guys that were just had a little bit of fat on them. Had some good shape. They were super devoted to working out, but they were just encouraged by what I was doing. And I actually shared Discipline Equals Freedom with them, believe it or not, which is interesting.
That's awesome.
And so some of those dudes had some big changes as well. It was also another one of the first occasions where I actually really just like achieved like a set goal that I had written down, executed, worked on, and completed pretty quickly. It was awesome.
Dude, that's awesome. So you get out, you're I'm willing to bet that you're still tracking all these things. You're, maintaining that discipline. But as you said, life's going to happen. So I'm sure there was times that were a little more disciplined than others. But what brought you to the point where like, hey, I can like, what was your moment where you recognized, hey, I can actually help other people do this on the outside? Because you get out, you're doing a few different things. But what was your moment of like, hey, cool, I'm not going back. So what needs to change in my life so that I don't fall down this path again? And what was the other moment of, hey, I can use these skill sets, I can use my discipline, I can use the grace that God has given me to help other people do the same?
So it was around that time I'd mentioned I'd met that gentleman in Victory, and he kind of called me out. He's like, "Hey, you're from Coronado," and so I was very, when I got out, I was very um, disciplined. I didn't get on social media uh, at all. And so I was very cautious. I didn't socialize with anybody. I just was in my route. I took my routine that I ran in prison and I brought it outside. So I would initially got a job with the Ironworkers Union, so I'd get up, go to the gym at 2:30, get that in, be on the yard by 6:37, wrench on iron all day, and then go to Victory after the gym, and then I would go home and just repeat that cycle. And I did that for about 8 months. Didn't have any social life. I didn't associate with anybody. The guy that I met at Victory was the first person that I actually socialized with. He had made those statements to me, and so I was kind of cautious. So I inquired, I'm like, who is this guy? What is he doing? Where is he from? I'm like
Yeah.
doing analysis on this dude. Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing wrong
Yeah.
with
And
that.
so he turned out to be okay. He was, you know, or mid 30s. He's a man, mid-30s, lives on the island, multiple business owner. And so I'm like, okay, you're safe. I can talk to you. And so I start talking to this
Smart.
guy. He starts to find out about me and my past and what I'm all about, just how I operate. And he was like, bro, he's like, there's dudes that are online helping other guys. And I was like, really? Like, what are you talking about? I'd never even been on Instagram before. And so I, through him pushing me, we would hang out a little bit. Just the first person that I started socializing with because, this was a decent person. And so he just is pushing me. And so finally I'm like, okay, like I get online and I see that there's other people doing this. And so I was like, okay, I had been working with family. I'd been working for the restaurants. I came on board with them. So while I was in federal prison, one of the things I also did was I got a college degree through correspondence
Nice.
in business management, hospitality. So the plan was to work for family, help them with the restaurants, et cetera. So initially was on with them. I was managing one location. There's another location in La Jolla. There's a concession stand in Petco Park. So I eventually started managing all locations. I then got into operations, and also opened a ghost kitchen out by SDSU. However, working with family is tricky. And, uh, I'm just, this is business. It's not personal. Things needed to be done that weren't getting done, and I would bring the issues to the table, and it would get messy. And it's like, hey, look, this isn't personal, this is just business. Like there are some really interesting things I won't even get into, but rhetorical things, like as in regards to like accounting, and like that's the bloodline of the business. Like that is not anything that should be slacked on at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was all that taking place, and then there was this being brought to my attention. And so I was like, okay, with this Instagram thing. So I created an Instagram page, and I hadn't been on social media. I had no idea about anything. And so I just got on there and started just documenting what I was doing. Like I had no idea about anything. So I just am documenting me getting up at 3:34, going up on the rooftop while it's dark, doing my burpees up there because I'd go do some. I'd wake up, get in my study, do my Bible study, go up there, do some burpees, come back down, and then go to the gym and just follow my routine. And I just started documenting all that. And sure enough, it just started catching. It started clicking. It started growing at a pretty good rate. And next thing I know, I took on a couple of coaches that kind of helped lay me out on how to set up the business, the program. So I did that, had a lot of learning experiences in that. Um, and it just started growing. I just started attracting people across the board. So, I mean, I started initially working with a lot of guys that were union workers, guys that just blue collar guys. But now today it's ventured off to a lot of uh, guys that have active or retired military veterans, a lot of first responders. I even got some LA County sheriffs on the team,
Oh, that's awesome.
guys that used to have me in corrections are now on my program. I just am super blessed, bro. And it's just grown, and it's gotten bigger and bigger.
Dude, that's huge. That
How good is God, man? Isn't
oh,
that crazy?
That's
absolutely.
insane,
So,
dude.
yeah, a
Wow.
couple of wins I'll share is I completed federal probation early. Had 3 years probation, and then for me, just doing everything I'm supposed to do. My federal probation officer was like, "Look, like you're good. Like if you want to file with court, you know, go for it." So I was at like a year, and so I hit my the federal defender up, and he said, "Bro, you're like way early. We can't even file this yet." He's like, "We need to let a few more months go by." So he let a few more months go by. We filed, and it got terminated. So terminated federal probation early. I've started working on some of my expungement. So I've got a stack of about 17 character recommendation letters through my interactions. I got hooked up with Core Medical Group, Sydney Gordon. Big shout out to Sydney. He's a close friend of mine. He brought me in there, welcomed me. So I'm getting on social media. I have guys reaching out to me, to guys that I really like. Like I had Cody Alford reach out to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we built a relationship through me and Cody. Then Sydney reached out because he was with Core Med, went out to Core Med for an event, met Jason Redman, Ray, Cash Care, and these guys have all been super supportive. Redmond's wrote me a character recommendation letter. Alfred's written me a character recommendation letter. I've got 17 letters from all like high, some team dudes, some Green Berets, three-letter agency guys. I mean, like, are you kidding me, bro? Like, it's so working on the expungement process. And then also just recently, through you, through Nako. I think I might, Nako is
I know him very well. He is a
yeah,
great. He's a great human.
he is. He saw what I was doing too and reached out and just to, encourage me. And so anybody that reaches out, like I always show a lot of respect, especially for guys that have served or anything like that. And so big shout out to Nako. They ended up through through communication, I ended up speaking with the lady who's in the charge of the department for Jocko Fuel, and we ended up partnering just last couple weeks ago. And so, waiting on my first package to arrive with some products. They sent me a PR package actually a couple months back, the little
Yeah,
Jocko Fuel
I
coffee
recognize that
donuts one.
coffee
So,
mug.
um, and so bro, I'm just absolutely blown away by things that are taking place. Origin sent me a package, just they'd seen some stuff I was doing. So we got to work on Origin next, JP.
That's
All right,
cool.
dude. So,
I
uh,
agree. I agree with that. Man, that's incredible. And so, I know another big thing in your life, which has been very important to you, is your marriage. That the relationship that you have with your wife, and it's just another great testament to God's grace and redemption. That it's like, yeah, hey, we're all gonna make mistakes in life, but like those things, if we choose, don't dictate the rest of our life. And I know you've shared on social media about your wife and getting married and your guys' faith and being baptized. So walk us through like that section of your life as well.
absolutely. Um, and I just would just touch briefly, with what I'm doing today, I'm changing guys' lives. I've had guys come to me with addiction issues,
Yeah.
and they've now gotten clean. They have clean time. They're now ripped and jacked, and it also trickles off onto their family and seeing their family step up and level up. And so that whole aspect, there's so much to that, and I really feel like that's my purpose today. So I can't gloss over the fact of how these guys that are coming to me are changing their lives, because
Mm-hmm.
they're owed that respect, and I got to definitely just voice that
Yes.
real briefly. um Man, uh, besides, my faith is number one.
Yeah.
As with her, it is as well.
Good.
And so we're come from very different backgrounds. She's never used a substance. She's raised Pentecostal, and so she just got her ears pierced recently. You know what I mean? So to say they're, we like to refer, no disrespect, but like to refer, they're kind of like Pharisees. You know what I mean? Like
The-
very legalistic.
Depending on the Pentecostal church, yes.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. She's
Which I didn't know there
Romanian,
was
so
different
she's
versions of that.
uh family. She's very first or second generation, sweetheart. First
Mm.
generation. So um the family came here, started working, and so she's just an angel, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
What?
I was trying, in my 8 months where I'm just really in my program, I'm like, man, I'm ready, God, to meet my wife. Every night I would do my program that I mentioned, up early, Ironworkers Union, Jiu-Jitsu, home, and then I'd get in bed and I'd read. And I was actually at this point in time, I'm reading Hackworth's book.
About
And
face?
so, yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so after I'm done reading, I would pray to God and I'd say, God, I'm ready. I'm ready for my wife. And so I would get on these Christian dating apps because I have no social life. And these women are not very Christian-like. And so, just to say the least. And so I was like about to give up. I'm like, I guess I'll have to meet a girl in the church. God, you're not working with my timeline, man. Like, come on, let's hurry. And so that same buddy, the first guy I was socializing with, was like, look, dude, just get on Hinge, like just get on this other dating app. And I'm like, bro, I'm not trying to get on a dating app, bro. Like, I'm like, okay, fine. I was like, I get on there, I'm like, faith first, like I'm clean, I'm sober, and don't hit me for a hookup, man. I'm just like pretty much just like punching him away from me. And I come across my wife's profile, and I literally get stuck, like how I gotten stuck with my brother. And we get stuck at certain points in life because God's like grabbing us. The Holy Spirit's grabbing us, is like, pay attention, dummy,
Yeah.
And so I swipe the right way, and we start talking. And a few weeks later, I ask her, we're going to go on a date. I'm like, hey, come meet me at the restaurant. So I have her meet me at the restaurant Coronado,
Nice.
and I get there a little before, and literally there's some car that comes by and like literally kind of sort of runs me over, and I'm like, ugh. And then I look and I notice it's a female driver, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Hmm.
And so I get a message from here, like from her. It's like, I'm Jerry. And I figured she meant like I'm here. And so it was her. She gets out and comes walking up, and I'm like, hi, Jerry, and so we sit down, start talking, and she was very serious, but she's asking me a lot of questions. And I had already all our major boxes lined up. Her faith was number one to her. Health, nutrition, exercise is important. She was a personal trainer for a long time. She was currently an RN at the time. And then our political views lined up, our views on children lined up, on how they should be raised. Um, etc. So all the major boxes lined up. So now we're meeting in person, and she was just a little pretty serious, asking a lot of questions. And I'm a pretty easygoing guy, and so I was kind of like, this is kind of serious for me. But since everything checked out, I was like, okay, we'll go on a second date. All the important things. By the second, third date, she loosened up quite a bit. She's a very easygoing person, and we dated for I think 6 weeks, and I proposed. I
My
just
guy.
My
knew it was it,
man.
man.
I mean, when you know, you know.
That's it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
recommend
I
that to our
just
young listeners, though. There's a difference here. To our young listeners, just maybe seek a little more counsel. You
Yeah,
had
yeah,
life.
take your time.
Yeah, you had life, and trust me.
But
I
if you
knew.
know after 6, like Kirsten
mean-
and I knew after 6 weeks, but we waited another 10 months.
I knew quick. Amanda knew quick. But I love when you hear these stories because it wasn't oh man, I really like her. You had been seeking this. You've been praying about this. There's alignment. There wasn't any like, wow, I really don't like this, but man, she's hot. I'll let that slide. You were like, no, we need to have alignment before these things progress. Am I correct on that assumption?
100%.
Okay,
Homework was done, data was
cool.
done. I was 41 at the time. She was, 39 at the time. So we're adults,
Yes.
So I agree. I concur. Kids shouldn't just jump into something. I will say also though that I'm not in agreement with people dating for like 5 or 10 years and then getting married. It's like I don't support that nonsense.
Bro, yeah, if
Uh,
at that point if you don't know, then what's the deal? And we've counseled a few people and they're like, "Well, we've been dating for 4 years, we're going to get married in about a year." I'm like, "Why?" Like I'm gonna finish school. It'll just be easier. It's like I promise you, it's not. It's not easier to leave your boyfriend or your girlfriend's house at 2 a.m. so that you can get up for an 8 a.m. class. It's way easier to get married, and then y'all both go to bed at 10:30, falling asleep to a Netflix show so that you can get up and go do your stuff. I promise you, it's easier.
Yeah, so she continues to blow. So I tell her on the second date, like I'm all about, I think honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness are without parallel. Like those three things I learned in recovery, but are universal for life. And so second date, I just kind of let the cat out the bag. She had asked me, like, she was like, "Where have you been recently?" And I was like, "Oh, I was up in Oregon for a couple of years." And she was like, "What were you doing there?" And I was like, "I wasn't really there by my own will." And so second date, I was like, "I need to tell you something." And I told her about my past.
Mm.
And bro, she didn't bat an eye. I was
Wow.
like, okay. I was like, all right, like, wow. And so that was really instrumental for somebody to recognize me and accept me for who I am today and not the person that I was. Um, another just like, okay, just confirms the fact that I should be doing what I was doing, or proposing. So I told her second date, and it was really sad. I initially met the family before they found out about my past.
Mm.
But I completely understand. I get it, 100%, that, once they found out my past, they were very hesitant. They were not supportive at all, to the extent of um, wanting to things with my wife. And the fact that she didn't um, submit or bend at all, I was like, wow, this woman's strong, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I need a strong woman in my corner, man.
Yeah,
And
we
so
all do.
uh yeah, and so but one thing that was respectable, and is one of her older brothers. She has five siblings, and four other siblings, excuse me. She's the fifth. One of her older siblings, her older brother that she's very close to, caught wind of what was taking place. He moved out to Tennessee. She's family's from Orange County, and so he flew out to come meet me, which I respected. And we met, got along from the jump. He's just a good guy. He was rolling a little bit out in Tennessee, and so while he was out and he was visiting, we were like, all right, let's go to Victory. So this was up at in Claremont, and so we go. We're there, and we do a class. I'm partnered with wifey, or soon to be wifey, and so after class, he's like, "Hey man, let's roll," and I'm like, "Eh." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "No, no, no, come on, let's roll," and I'm like, "All right." I was like, "Babe, I got you." And so, so we're on the ground. I end up taking his back pretty quickly and sinking in RNC, and so then we go again, and I kind of let him get top position the second time starting, and end up getting a sweep, and I get him on top, and then the buzzer ticked, and so we just kind of called it at that point in time. But he was a good sport, it was all fun. It was all fun and games, it was a good time. Um, Actually had the opportunity to kind of minister to him a little bit because he was going through some issues in his marriage. They were really on the course for divorce, and I just am not supportive of it due to my upbringing. I just am not supportive of it.
Yeah.
And so I really encouraged him to stick it out and make a change. He had recently gotten sober, put the bottle down. And so I was like, look, dude, like, you got the opportunity right now to just show him what you're working with. Like, you need to get disciplined, you need to get on the path, et cetera, et cetera. So he did actually I got him on the program. He straightened up, got clean. Today his marriage is pretty well repaired,
Wow.
um, which is pretty cool. um Not taking responsibility, I'm just stating things that had happened. It just
I mean, ultimately, he had to take ownership and
right.
decide what he's going to do, but you helped guide him, which you should take ownership and responsibility for. Like, God gave you this opportunity to help guide people, and so you were a part of that. Now, I love the fact that you're like, hey, I'm not going to take credit, which you shouldn't, because that was him and God's grace and ultimately his decision. But you should take credit in knowing that you played a piece of it, because
Thank you,
had
brother.
had you not played a piece of that, like, you would have been doing the wrong thing, because God gave you
Right.
that opportunity. Also, it's the brother of your, soon to be wife. Why would you not want him to be on the right path and, willing to have those hard conversations and also be there to support him? Like, bro, that's what we all should be doing. And I think it's awesome that you did that.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, right call to make, 100%. So and I guess I didn't really know it at the time, but that was uh of course really meaningful to my wife, for that to happen, and just to see that stuff take place. It was a real big deal for her, as it should be. And it's just what we do. And so but slowly there's been a more acceptance from her family, which has been great. Again, I get it. I understand. I don't take it personally because, they don't really know me. But I understand, somebody coming into the family that has history, the history that I got, I would be skeptical myself. But some of those relationships are being repaired and restored. A lot of other family, comes from a very big family. And so a lot of family members have seen me on social media. They see what I'm doing. So a lot of people are super supportive. Had other, uh, some family members reach out to her, like her father has passed away. And so had a couple of her, an aunt and uncle reach out to her mother and be like, hey, this is what's up. And so it's been good, man. It's been grateful. Everything's moving in the right direction. I got to drop this bomb. So I proposed, right? And we're sitting there just like in our daily stuff. I'm like on my cell phone. And she's like, yeah, I think we should elope. And I'm like, yeah, that kind of seems like it might be a good thing to do right now, just with everything. And she's like, yeah, I think, well, maybe we should like go skydiving and get married. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, babe. And she's like, yeah, well, maybe we can do it while we're like, on the plane or in the air. And then I like stop and I'm like, wait a minute, like you're serious, huh? And she's like,
This sounds
she's like
planned.
she's like 5'3", like, buck 15, 20, like a little thing. And I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, yeah. And I'm like, okay, all right, like send it, let's go.
Dude,
So
that's cool.
we end up going. So the pastor, that's another thing here. The pastor from our church, I've actually gotten him on the program, got him on the team. I had to kind of call him. I felt called to call him out at a men's event we're having at church. He's up on stage talking to a bunch of dudes. He's like us. He's trained, trained a bunch of stuff, Muay Thai, etc. Dad was in prison. He's got a bunch of tattoos, regular dude. And so I felt called, like he's gotten out of shape a little bit. It's gotten a belly. And so he's up on stage talking to all these men. And I'm like, I hear the Holy Spirit like telling me, you need to call this dude out. And I'm like, oh man. I'm like sitting at the back of the church. So way away from all the tables where the guys are at. So he comes off stage and then comes all the way up to the back of the room where I'm at and sits right next to me. And I'm like,
Okay.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm like, bro, I love you, dude. I hope don't take this the wrong way, but like, we got to get to, broke it down to him and he was receptive. He was like, you're right. And I was like, okay, badass. So got him on the team, got him on the program, tried to get him to jump with us. I was like, hey, bro, come jump with us. Like, cause we were doing premarital classes with him. That's where we're at. I think it's super important that we do all these steps. And so we were doing these premarital classes with him, tried to get him to jump. He wouldn't jump, but he was on the ground. So we ended up going out to Otay, jump, jump in my cowboy boots. We both had our cowboy boots on land, peel the shirt off, throw my resist all on, and set our vows on the ground, bro. It was just like insane.
Bro, that's awesome. Yeah, I jumped out there a few times. That was that drop zone is like right around the corner from where I used to live with my roommate Derek. And
Okay.
actually, happy birthday to Derek in heaven. When this episode comes out, this Friday is his birthday. So he was a part of.
Awesome.
He was on the helicopter with the Extortion 17 crash. So he's no longer with us. But yeah, that drop zone is a lot of good
Infamous.
memories out there with Derek and guys in the teams. And I mean, that was
Yeah.
right around the corner from our house. Literally, as you're headed to the drop zone, those neighborhoods on the right, that last neighborhood on the right that you could have turned right into before you hit that first major corner going around the lake. If you turned right there, that's where we lived.
Sweet.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
dude, that's awesome, man. You jump out of an airplane, you land, you're already wearing cowboy boots, you put on a cowboy hat, and you say your vows. That is freaking awesome.
It's pretty rad.
Not my ideas. She's got the best ideas. You know what I mean? I was big in wearing my boots and my hat, but she's got great ideas. I need to listen to her ideas more often. She always comes through.
Well, now this is on video, so she'll replay that section
Yeah.
back to you multiple times. So I know we're probably at a point where we can start wrapping things up. You have obviously an incredible story, Anthony, incredible life. Really looking forward to just seeing all the incredible things that God is going to do for you and your wife, your business, and the people in your life. But one of the things I kind of want you to think about after Lucas shares a few things is, if you could leave our audience with one piece of advice to help them win with sobriety, business, or in life, what would it be? So I just kind of want you to think about that. Again, if you could leave our audience with one piece of advice to help them win with sobriety, business, or in life, what would that be? And man, there's a lot of overlap with what you have going on in life and just a lot of our listeners, man. And so I'm thankful for that. You took the time to make this a priority. Obviously thankful for your wife sitting in there, listening, supporting you. I think that's really cool that she's, a part of this right now as well. And again, looking forward to seeing what you guys are going to do. But Lucas, I know you probably have some questions as well before we close it out. You have like 2 pages of notes from
Yeah. Well, like this is such Anthony, your story's so incredible, and I don't use this word flippantly, but it is really inspiring because of everything that you've overcome, the way that you've acknowledged how God is working in your life, and now the position that you're in. And one of the things that I really have gathered from it is that, like, even though you recognize that you're a different person, you also understand why, the acknowledgement of your past can be such a difficult thing for people to overcome, instead of having the like only God can judge me attitude that a lot of people have. Is it like, hey, no, you got to work through it on your end. I'm going to keep living a life of character. And so, like, how often do you think, from a coaching perspective, that that's something that you're having to coach people through? Is it like, it doesn't really matter if people want to hold your past against you? Like, you can't take note of that. You've got to continue to stay on the path and do what you're supposed to be doing. How often is that something that you're having to coach?
All the time. All the time. I'd say it's I can't, and for anybody else, can't be concerned with other people or anything of that nature. Um, I was so tied into thinking about JP's question here. I kind of, got a little, but it's I don't even know how to put this. Um, give me another. Can you run that by me again, real quick? Just refresh me.
Yeah. How do you coach people to uh, not be bothered when other people hold their past against them, so that they stay
Okay,
on the path even if somebody's holding their past against them?
copy. It ties into how I was going to answer JP's question, actually, believe it or not. I think the most important thing that I've learned, and is just Ken will answer JP's question with this as well, is focusing on today. Like I mentioned, not being concerned with anybody else's opinion or any of that stuff. Like everything starts with the self. I call it being in proper alignment. It's like, for me, it's number one, I need to be dialed in with my faith. That needs to be uh, daily needs to be put aside for that. As Jesus used to get up and go off by himself, and spend that time. We need to do. I need to do that daily for me to be in proper alignment. It's also being dialed in mentally, psychologically. Whether it being through personal development stuff, et cetera. But then also, last not least, is a physical body. You know what I mean? Make sure you're fueling yourself properly, making sure you're exercising yourself. So being in proper alignment. So everything starts with the self. Is how I work with guys. And so taking that, and then but also just applying today. Like, what does a perfect day look like for you? And so it's getting guys to focus on today, making sure they're taking care of their obligations, all of these things. And this is what I put this together in prison. It's like, because it's Groundhog Day, it's over and over again. So it's like figuring out what that perfect day looked like for me, making adjustments. Things are going to change. You're going to have to pivot. It's not going to be, there's a difference between being like, routine and structure. You got to have structure. Your routine might change. You still have to be disciplined, but it's being able to make adjustments, wrenching it down. This works, this doesn't work, habit stacking, etc. But finding out that perfect day. So, like, any listeners out there, if you're struggling through whatever it may be, addiction, whatever it may be, it doesn't matter what you're struggling with, but figure out what a perfect day looks like for you. Okay. And it may take you, it took me a couple of years to figure out in prison what my perfect day looked like. And that's a simple reoccurring Groundhog Day. And it took me that long to figure it out. It doesn't have to necessarily have to take you that long to figure out what a good day looks like, but just start working on that day. And especially if you're in addiction, you can't have any idle time. There can't be any downtime. So make sure from the moment you roll out of your rack to the moment you get in your rack at night, that it's all blocked out. There's no dead time, there's no downtime. And if you can figure that day out, you just copy and paste that day. And that's exactly what I've done. And when you pull your head up out of the trenches and go up for air after a little while, time's going to have gone by and you're going to be in a wonderful place. I mean, the place from me being in federal prison a couple of years ago to now being where I'm at today with the things that I have going on and the people in my surroundings, that's the progress that is made.
That's awesome, man.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, pretty good stuff. Well, Anthony, thanks so much. And thank you guys for watching, listening, for liking and subscribing. Make sure that you check us out on Instagram. You can follow at JP Dinnell Podcast. You can follow at JP Dinnell, which is 2 N's, 2 L's, at Lucas Pinkard. And check out Anthony's stuff at Unchained_fit. You can check out all of the stuff that he's got going on there. And as you go do that, visit that Instagram, you'll notice that we're doing our Hump Day Health Hacks with the folks over at First in Nutrition, who shout out to Jonathan for helping us this week. My dad had emergency quintuple bypass last week. And Jonathan jumped in and is helping us get his nutrition dialed in for his recovery. So huge shout out to them. And I will say, if we don't just trust them with ourselves, but we trust them with our folks in recovery, you should go trust them too. Go check out firstinnutrition.com/JPpod, and they'll give you 4 free weeks of coaching. If you want to hang out with Jonathan and Ann, go to the Muster in Orlando. Yep. That's right in their backyard. So you can go to echelonfront.com, check out the events that are coming up. Women's Assembly is happening this week. We've got the Muster in Orlando in the early part of December that you'll want to be on. Go check out that Extreme Ownership Online Academy. Get in on that Monday afternoon call where you can meet some of the instructors, and maybe you can see Dave Burke give one of those classes and go pick up his new book.
Yeah.
The final part of the trilogy, The Need to Lead, that's coming out in October. He just posted a picture of some of those brand new hardcover books with that hot orange cover. And it looks exactly like you would think somebody from Top Gun would design a book to look like. I saw that and I was like, this definitely, when Top Gun Maverick Part 2 comes out, then that'll be the book that Maverick comes out with and start selling. So make sure that you go pick that stuff up, go check it out, and then go check out Jesus in Jiu-Jitsu. You know, we talked a lot about Jiu-Jitsu training. It's a ministry that JP and I are a part of. We do regularly scheduled seminars throughout the year, and this coming up in October, we're going to be in Boston at Dedeco's place, so you can be there with Dedeco. Jocko Fuel is pulling out all the stops to make sure people can get free energy drinks, hydrates, and all kinds of stuff, as well as a great seminar by our coach, Rafael Formiga Barbosa, now 13-time double world champ, which is just freaking unbelievable. Yeah. Tossed a guy that was like 360 pounds with this beautiful overhead sweep.
Yeah.
Yep. And he got his free ticket to Formiga Airlines. But check that out. And then make sure that you're there. You can sign up for our email list so that you get updates on all of the events and things that are going on there. And then after you roll, you know what you're going to need? You're going to need some skincare, because there's a reason we have rash guards. It's because all of those mats, as nice as they are, they take all the skin off of your nose, off your face, your elbows.
Oh, speak for yourself.
Well, I will. That's what I'm doing right now. And so the way you take care of that, go to littlecattle.co, pick up some of that beef tallow cream so that you can go and get your skin taken care of. They've got the after sun care, the anti-itch cream, all the things that help you stay in shape, so the next time you get back on the mat, you're leaving more grease and less skin. You're like, is that going to be your new slogan?
No.
You don't think so?
Absolutely
all right, well,
not.
All right, it was worth a shot. So, and then on the path printing, that there's nothing better to wear around than something that shows your company's logo. So wear the gear that you design that promotes the things that you want to promote. Go check out On the Path Printing. They can take care of all your apparel printing needs. You've got your self-care taken care of with the tallow. You've got your self-defense with Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu. You got your personal development with Echelon Front. Now, you know what? Let's do some Jiu-Jitsu. Let's keep them away from us so we don't have to take them to the ground. Go check out the guys over at Bruiser Arms. JP, Leif, Jocko that put together custom gear packages, some of the same stuff that they used whenever they were defending our country in Ramadi, as well as custom trainings. Shoot those guys a message if you want to do it. They've got an awesome facility down in the Central Texas area. And then finally, to the folks that keep us covered and recovering, it's the people over at Origin and Jocko Fuel. Use code JPPod20 to save 20% on anything that you get over at Jocko Fuel. We got the hydrates and the Jocko Goes that we routinely drink on this program. I got one of the things we got that on is a little extra creatine, help with that recovery and those things, some magnesium to help him out with his sleep. Also, magnesium is massive for heart health, which is the thing that we're figuring out, because of what a lot of people don't remember is your heart's a muscle. So make sure that you're checking those things out. They've got massive health benefits, and it's the cleanest supplements on the market. You don't have to worry about the fact that you're getting like 90% rice flour if you take that magnesium supplement. You're actually getting the things that you need. And for Origin, they've actually got a deal going on all their jiu-jitsu gear right now. So go check it out. If you need jiu-jitsu gear, you want to go check stuff out, you're ready for that, make that commitment to jump into jiu-jitsu, go to originusa.com. Check it out. They got an awesome sale on all that stuff. And shout out to Dennis and the team that's keeping stuff going on the Origin BJJ stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy all the things that are coming up. Like you said, the next Jesus in Jiu-Jitsu in Boston is, when this comes out, next Saturday, the 11th, which is freaking awesome to think like we're going to be out there. I will not be out there. Josh and I will not be. I will be actually running an FTX with a client on the 10th and 11th, but the Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu team will be out there in Boston. And then on the 24th, 25th, and 26th, Lucas and I and Josh and other guests and guys with Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu, we talk about Pursuit, Walking in Truth Ministries, those Pursuit events, which is a freedom-based event for men and women, and they also have a marriage thing. But on the 24th, 25th, 26th, they're actually having a men's conference, which is going to be awesome, and I'm going to be headed out to that. I'll be actually speaking at that, but it's just a really cool event that they have put on. And then, like you said, the muster in December in Orlando, it's a little, I believe I was looking at the numbers earlier this week, it's right around 80% sold out. The post-muster FTX sold out. FTX 18 that we're conducting this week sold out as well. So we've been having people ask about the FTXs. The next one that you can be a part of is next spring.
Spring 2026.
Yeah, which we're also launching the advanced FTX
Whoa,
at that time as well.
Nice.
Which is going to be good. But yeah, the December muster, if you guys want to join us in Orlando, that's going to be, registration, meet and greet kicks off on Sunday the 7th, and then the muster is on the 8th and the 9th. But just the reason why we share that is we get a lot of questions about people asking about the different events. How can they plug in? What are the next steps? And, I think Anthony's story is a testament to investing into yourself. Yeah. And what we do at Echelon Front is like Anthony said, universal. We teach leadership lessons that we learned in combat, also refined in combat, also refined and modified in training to prepare guys for combat in the SEAL teams, which is great. But it doesn't stop there. These lessons that we teach, if you're listening to what Anthony was saying today, can be applied to your personal life if you choose to. It can be applied to your business if you choose to. It can be applied to your marriage if you choose to, your family if you choose to, your health if you choose to, your sobriety if you choose to. But at the end of the day, you have to make that choice. So before I close it out, Anthony, any final closing thoughts, any way that we can support you and your business? I mean, I know obviously people following you on Instagram is a start. Sending you a message on Instagram if they want to work with you is a start. Is there anything else that you want to share for how our listeners can connect with you, they can support you, and then, any additional closing thoughts that you might have?
Thank you. Just reach out. I think as it was mentioned by one of us earlier, if you don't speak on something, it stays in your head. You have to speak on it to make it tangible, to address it. So any of you guys out there that are struggling, you got to reach out. Once you reach out, that's the first step and can be the hardest step. But reach out. You owe it to yourself. You deserve it. And so reach out. You can reach out, hit me up on Instagram. I answer all my DMs myself. and can just talk, see what it looks like, man. So highly encourage people to reach out, because if you don't make it tangible, it's not going to get addressed. Other thing I'll say is, man, it'd be an honor. I'd be more than grateful to attend any of these events that are taking place.
Heck yeah.
I'd love to get involved in any of the musters, FTXs, any of that stuff in the future. I just know how pivotal it's changed my life, and so maybe JP can get me hooked up here.
Heck yeah, bro. One of the things I was thinking about before we close it out, one, I want to thank, all the people that have been praying for my brother, and Lucas's dad. Lucas and I got hit with two pretty serious things, I think, the same day.
Yeah.
Lucas's dad, ended up in the hospital and have to have that serious surgery, and my brother ended up in the hospital as well, and he ended up with an infection in his hand from work, and wasn't feeling well, and his girlfriend Jennifer was like, "Hey, we need to go to the hospital." My brother's hard-headed, and he would not have taken himself. He would not have, and so he, thankfully, listens to the advice of his girlfriend, and they take him to the hospital. And when he's at the hospital, he has a seizure, and he had a seizure for just over a minute, which may not seem long, but for a seizure, it's a dangerously long time. And thankfully, he was in the hospital, and I just had sent out this update to the Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu crew and a bunch of other people that knew about it, that were praying for my brother. And he goes, "Well, my numbers are finally down, but they're going to keep me another night to verify that they will continue to go down. The numbers were so high because I seized for over a minute, which may not seem long, but I guess for a seizure, that's dangerously long time. The timing of it happening while walking into the ER is by God's grace alone, let alone Jennifer being home that day to take me in. God definitely has a plan for me. Thank you, everyone, for your prayers these last few days. I could feel them. I'm ready for some fresh air and sunshine soon, but after talking with our sister Sarah, I'm blessed to be here. She said what I went through is pretty serious, and most people don't turn out well after an event like that." And the reason why I share that is, obviously Corey's been frustrated that he's been in the hospital, almost a week now, and, he's just ready to get out. But he had a shift of his mindset of, you know what, I'm actually thankful that I'm here. I'm thankful that it happened while I was here. I'm thankful that I'm getting the care that's needed. I'm thankful for all these things. And that's his choice. He could be pissed off. He could be playing the victim card. He could be doing all these other things, but which I'm sure he's had all these thoughts. But like we were saying earlier, each of us has a choice. We have to take those thoughts captive, and we have to choose, what are we going to do with this situation? Like Anthony was saying, hey, what are you going to do today? What does that day look like? Make the plan, work the plan. In the SEAL teams, we would put guys through very hard training. And, as instructors, we would poke holes in their plans and ask them different questions. And, sometimes the junior leaders, Jocko shared the story of what he saw when he was a junior leader. And we would continue to see it throughout the evolution of time in the SEAL teams. And even I saw it as an instructor when guys didn't know the proper answer, they would say something along the lines of well, the situation will dictate. And as instructors, we would have to remind these guys, no, we dictate the situation. We dictate the situation in the SEAL teams by training, by planning, and by taking action. And I hope that this message today from Anthony has been a reminder that we, as humans, have the ability to dictate the situation. The situation can dictate, or we can actually dictate the situation. And how do we do that? We go out there, we do the work that's needed, we put in the effort, we build our legacy, and we never settle. This has been the JP Dinnell Podcast, episode 106.